All right, let me take you through a few little tips here that you might want to employ in your live setup, and some of the things you might not be thinking about. So I want to kind of get you thinking of some different type of things. For instance, a backdrop. It is often not very much talked about, but it's so important. And what we use is, this is basically the same material that they make, you know, like moving blankets out of. And we had these made for us. So we had a good guy who sewed them, and it was only about $200. But why they're so important is they take a lot of the sound and they kind of disperse it more evenly. A lot of times when we play in clubs and bars, you're going to be playing against like a glass wall or some sharp surface, and that could spell big trouble for the sound man, because you're going to have sound waves bashing off of that very quickly and not being able to control it. So having a backdrop, you'll be amazed how much it helps. It's a nice thick padded material, and plus it looks kind of cool to have something dark that you're playing against. You can hang your banner. In this instance, is my band, Leo Rising. And if you have one made, you want to have them sew a pocket in the top to run a pole so you can hang it. Because in a lot of places, you're not going to be able to nail it to the wall or do any damage. So what we do is you run a pole, and it's a system of 3-foot poles along the top. It has a pocket sewn in, and then you have the stands on the ends. Now these stands come apart. You can set them up like tripods, or in this instance we have them, because we don't have enough room, we just have them up against the wall tight. So the backdrop makes a big, huge difference, especially if you're playing in places with a lot of glass, which if you're playing in bars and small, medium clubs, you're going to have glass all around you, and you want to cover it up. In this instance, we have two 6-foot panels, so it gives us 12 feet. And if we need more, if we have another side of glass, we bring more in. So get yourself a backdrop. It really will improve the overall sound of everything. All right, as you saw in our rehearsal room, we basically use, for most of our live performances, we have our tower consisting of our 18-inch subwoofers for all the lows that we run through. And then we have our mains, our 15-inch mains with the horn. Now these are JBLs. I really like the JBL line of speakers. I think they're of the best out there. And these are wood cabinets. And remember, I talked about that because a lot of times with PA systems, speakers, it's all about resonance. And with wood, it resonates so much better and more clear than, like, a lot of times you'll see PA speakers encased in ABS plastic. And if you listen to the ABS plastic versus the wood usually always sounds better. I think so anyway. So that's a choice you want to consider when choosing your speakers. The resonance of the wood. It's kind of like an acoustic guitar. Remember, I always talk about the wood and the resonance of the wood of the acoustic, the sound going in there and resonating and bouncing around. Wood resonates really well. If you can, it's always a good idea to separate your sounds. And I talked about this before, meaning we run all the lows through the 18s, through the subwoofers. So through here we have the kick drum, we have the bass guitar, and some of the guitar frequencies are running through, the lower ones anyway, through the subs. And the vocals, the guitar, when you're miking, everything is coming out the main, okay? It's always nice to separate your sound because you'll get clear sound. Plus, when you separate it, you're not running everything through the mains, so you don't have to drive your mains as hard. So it actually makes your whole system sound better, clearer, and it saves a lot of wear and tear. Now these, we talked about active speakers versus passive. These are active. They have amps built right into them. Here's the amp right here. And the other thing I like about these new JBLs is this is the crown amplifier built right into the speaker. So we don't need a separate amp at the mixer. The amp is basically right here. Here's your power. So you have to be able to have the run an extension or have a power outlet where you can go through. Here's our XLR into the speaker, and then we have level controls and EQ boosts and whatnot. Really like the crown amps. They're just awesome. And the JBLs, you can't go wrong. This is the PRX 500. Okay, these light up when they're on, which is cool too. Now the subwoofer system that we use is the 18-inch speaker. Again, these are powered. Now you can get these non-powered, but then you're going to have a separate amp, right? Having it all in one is nice. It's a little heavier, but we like the portability of it and not having a separate amp. So we have a separate power amp driving this, separate power amp built-in driving our mains. The thing that you have to remember is that it takes a lot more signal or input to drive an 18-inch speaker and get that moving than a 15-inch speaker and get that moving and pushing in. The reason that's important is coming off your main board, you cannot run the same signal, the same amount of output to both pieces, because this will be way louder than this and you're going to end up putting more stress on your mains. You need a separate mix. So you always want to have a separate mix for your subs than you do for your main, so you control the levels to each. And obviously if you're playing a lot of small venues or you're doing a lot of coffee houses, you're not going to bring your big subs. This is more for the medium-sized clubs where you really want to separate the lows and get that bass, those lows pumping, and really getting the crowd feeling it. So much difference, and your whole system will sound so much clearer and have more power when you separate like this, or at least it'll seem that way. It'll sound a lot better. And again, consider the JBLs, they do a great job. I talk about the monitors, the stage monitors for a moment, okay? We have 3 monitors set up in front, and a couple things you'll notice right off the bat is, as to save space on the small stages, try to prop them up on milk crates or on the steps instead of having the monitor on the actual stage, because that will save you room and save you stage room so you'll be able to move around, especially on small stages, so try to get everything off the stage. The other thing is if you notice the vocal mics, the microphones have to be behind the speakers. Our speakers are out front, okay? Your vocal mics, especially when your speakers are in tight, the vocal mics have to be behind your mains, because otherwise the microphone, you're going to get feedback where the speakers are going to feed back through the mains. So you see here a vocal mic, the towers are out front. You don't want to have this vocal, you don't want to have the speakers back here, because then you're going to get feedback between the mic and the speaker. It'd be different if we can get these speakers way to the sides, but here we're in tight because of space constraints. So have your speakers out front, your mics behind it. So on stage, basically what we're hearing is you don't hear any of the main mix. What we're hearing is just the amplifiers and what's coming through the monitors. That's why your monitors are so important, because and in most instances we mainly just run the vocals through the monitors, except for our drummer. Our drummer has a separate monitor which we run kick through and his snare, so give him a separate mix so he can hear what he needs to hear. But the big thing is with your monitors, you want to make sure they're loud enough, because in many instances, another tip is if the singer, your vocalist, cannot hear themselves, they're going to scream louder, and it's going to cause them to stress out their voice a lot faster. Make sure your monitors are loud enough so your singer is comfortable, can hear them. Also, if you're singing backgrounds, you want to be able to hear yourself and make sure you're in key, on pitch. So have a good mix. Now we have all these run off a separate EQ, also just to help with feedback and also to help give each person exactly what they want to hear, okay? You could have active and passive on your monitors too. Again, we use JBLs, these are 12s with a horn, and they do a really good job. They're very clear and tight, and they sound great. So important to get a good monitor mix, because remember, when you're on stage, if your speakers are up front, you're not going to hear what's coming through. We leave that to our sound guys, and those are the guys that are adjusting the mix. You're hearing monitor mix and you're hearing the amplifiers, and you want to keep your stage volume low as possible. You want to have it high enough so there's energy and you can feel it and the crowd's going, but you don't want your stage volume too high, because we have the guitar mic, the bass mic, and if it's too loud it's going to negate coming out of the PA. So you want to have it loud enough for energy, but not too loud, because you want the sound guys controlling the sound from your towers, from your mains, from your subs. Okay? That's very, very important. A lot of times the stage volume is way too loud, and then your sound guys, they don't have control over the sound. That's why